So welcome to another war game review from theplayersaid.com. My name's Alexander.
And I'm Grant.
And today we are joined by some friends of ours that we game with every so often.
Friends after a game like this? I don't know about that.
Every so often.
Yeah. So we've got Matt, we've got Josh, and we've got Tim. And today we played together Ancient Civilizations of the Inner Sea from GMT Games. It's a game that was co-designed by Mark McLaughlin and...
Christopher Vorder Brugge.
Yes. Sorry about the pronunciation.
Yeah, terrible butcher.
So, as you might expect, this is a fairly popular game from GMT. A lot of people playing it, and it's very cool and beautiful to look at. Nice big long board, lots of cool coloured wooden pieces, and it's kind of a miniature civilization building game is how it's kind of posited.
A light civ building game.
Yes.
Very light.
You're building settlements and cities, building a couple of wonders, going out and sailing on the seas and fighting people on land. It's really, really simple in that way. A lot of the game is dictated by card play, and as such, there is a lot of kind of chaos and randomness, so that is what keeps us in the very light and kind of fun category, so to speak. So, and by that, this is a game where you can employ strategies and kind of have a plan, after about one other
you can try them.
Can you? Can, yes. And so that's one thing about this game. It's just like, it's just kind of like, all right, let's see what happens, and then something happens, and someone gains some kind of victory points at the end. So it's a very chaotic game, but light fare. We played a full Epoch 20 victory point game. That took us about how long, Tim?
Probably about 2.5 hours.
2 hours. Yeah. Does that include learning the game?
Yeah, but learning the game didn't really take a lot of time. I mean, it was maybe a 20-minute teach.
And that's one of the really positive things about this game. Very quick to learn. The rulebook is not big, and the rulebook itself is very clear. And I was impressed with the actual.
The teaching took longer because I did it rather than Tim. Had Tim done it, we would have been in and out 10 minutes.
But I think it's like 5 pages of actual rules.
A little more than that.
It's not a lot. Like half the book is setup of all the different player counts and configurations, but the rules are very clean and easy to read. Decent play card as well. So actually getting it to the table, easy enough. Trying to figure out how to win, very challenging. So what we'll do is we'll kind of go down the line here. What's some fun things you thought about this game? What did you enjoy?
Fun things that I thought the cards were cool. They were just really brutal. Some of them were absolutely brutal. And it's mean-spirited, right? It's
heavy to that, yes.
But it's kind of fun. I mean, we were having fun with it. We were like, oh, I'm going to do this, and right back at you. And so that was kind of fun. But, overall, I think you need to go into this with just a mindset that we're just going to have fun with this.
Yes.
Check your feelings at the door, frankly. That's my opinion.
I like the Wonders card and the investment cards. A little bit of engine building with that. We were debating whether the Wonders were good. Some people didn't like them. I liked them. What else? I mean, the victory point, Alexander's point about the game being relatively simple. Victory point counts having cities, having wonders. That lets you plan where you think you're going to score all your points. So there are a couple things.
Yeah, I actually enjoyed the randomness of the cards. I liked how it switched gears. It could totally derail some sort of plan you have in your mind. It kind of added just a sense of, you just don't know what's going to happen at any given time. And that was kind of fun. It was kind of a good way to, I mean, I could totally play in one person's direction if they never got anything like that. But if they did, then like Matt. Like totally dressed up Matt's plans, which was fun to see because it was Matt. So.
I could see in your eyes when you were hurting other people.
Yeah, no, it was
we
good.
need to talk.
Like with a Jerry Grant Wonder, it was fun.
Take this.
Really lit up.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
No, for a light civilization game, I think it does its purpose. It's very easy to learn. It's very easy to teach. Turns are relatively simple. And you just play. I do like the differences with the invention cards and the investment cards. Yeah. But it's just a simple, quick civilization game. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't say quick, as in the length of the game, but quick.
Well, you can actually make it quick,
right? And that's
because you can just do one epoch or a number of victory points.
So we played just the 20 victory points, and we got through the first epoch. And that was a good length of game, I thought.
Yeah.
Did you like who won, Tim?
Yeah, he's kind of a jerk sometimes. But yeah, I like who won.
Tim won if you didn't know.
The one thing I really thought was clever about the design of this game is the actual pieces on the board. A lot of Civ games have huge boxes and tons of different types of units and buildings and all this other stuff. This does everything with discs. A disc is a boat, a disc is an army, a disc is a settlement, a bunch of discs is a city. And doing all of that keeps the table creep down, but it's pretty smart, and it helps to keep it light and not shifting through tons of pieces as well.
So I also
I just wanted to pronounce epic for you guys.
Not epoch, epic. Yeah, there you go.
I also like that there was no dice.
Yeah.
I didn't have to roll dice, and I didn't have to lose anything due to dice. So,
So, yeah, there's no dice rolling. The combat is simply like who's got the biggest stack versus the smaller stack, and there's a priority about how you remove those. You can negate some of those losses through spending money or discarding cards, but it's not going to swing on a dice roll. This game's going to swing on card play.
yeah.
The more cards that you play to kind of screw someone else over, they're going to do in kind to you, and you should expect that. And if you're on the leader, people will gang up on you, as they should, and will need to as well. So it's a very, very heavy take that game, so you do need to, like Grant said, check your feelings, play this with the right group of people, and just kind of like...
Were we the right group of people?
I
thought we had fun.
Yeah, we did okay.
And I think that's the thing. I said this at the very beginning. Even after the first round, and we had hurt each other a little bit, there was still laughter.
Yeah.
There were still people looking around, how am I going to get you, or what I'm going to, so it, once again, it fills the purpose of the design. The design was to have fun, and I felt like we had fun.
Yeah.
Is this the best light Civ game that I've ever played? No, I wouldn't say that. I don't think anyone else at the table would say that. But it had a lot of neat elements. The cards are cool. Each of the civilizations have their own power.
Yes.
And actually a couple different powers. And that was kind of cool. Like I kept looking at Josh going, how are you doing that? And he was like, well, this is how I'm doing that. So that was kind of neat. More plays will help us understand that. So you can get a better feel for... So I thought some of those elements were
Or you
really
could get
cool.
a card or transfer 2 discs to ready. So you
And then like you said, one disc is the same for everything. I thought that was slick.
Yeah, it's a very cool way of doing a design. The one thing this game does need, in my opinion, is more barbarian discs.
Yeah.
Because you end up having to use a second faction because there were so many barbarians out on the board.
I would be interested in playing without barbarians. They're obviously it would, like
It hurt you the
it
most.
really hurt me, but I just found them sort of annoying. A lot of the game just insufficiently strategic from my point of view.
Yeah.
And the barbarians are another example of that. You just sort of dump them out there.
Yeah, I
and
think
they-
so too. Sometimes we just put them in an area that nobody ever touched again, so they just sat
Yeah.
there.
And I think those were done because you drew this one.
I put
right?
these ones out, so I just wanted to get them
So
out of
you
my
wanted
way.
them away from you.
They had
Tim,
to put their-
you put those down there because I think it was early on. And
Yeah, we were just
you
trying to
weren't
feel
used to
out the
hurting
game.
people
Yeah.
yet. If you had that play again, you probably would have done it differently.
Alexander would have been hurt.
He would have been hurt.
I mean, they're serving their purpose. They're gumming up the work, so that's
Yeah.
the purpose of them. But I think it would be a little bit more just player to player thinking through how to attack the board if they weren't part of the game.
So you had an interesting statement, Matt. You said sufficiently strategic.
I didn't think it was
Yeah,
sufficiently
you didn't
strategic.
think it was sufficiently strategic.
Yeah.
What is the strategy? What should you go into this game trying, knowing that every card that comes up can
Yeah.
wipe you out? Every event
Yeah.
can really... What is the strategy? Because I think there is some strategy.
I can just say what mine was. I was in Gaul, so I was the pre-French and did not surrender. And from Gaul, I chose to build up all of my cities there. So I still have 4 cities at the end of the game, and I got 2 wonders. So I had sort of an engine there that was giving me
You
points
were
every
getting
time.
6 or 7 victory
Yeah.
points every round.
Every time, and then I finished just 1 point behind Tim, and then and this will get us to talk about the event that happened to all of us. And then I decided to distribute everything else across the board, across the seas, so I could have adjacency to competitors to build up my ready supply.
Because
as
when
well.
you're adjacent to a competitor, you get another disc.
Yeah, you get another
Right.
disc. I get it adjacent to everyone. Plus, I had
Commerce.
some sea areas, right, to get yet another
Yep.
disc. But then it also lets me deploy discs other places. I can
Right.
distract people. I can try to get cities isolated, and so that was my strategy. And that was blown up after the sea was wiped out.
Because the reason, because you place other discs adjacent to discs or areas you control, right? Either in areas you control or in areas where you. So that's why you wanted to spread out.
Yes.
So that you could. And I think at first I was trying to do that, but when those boats got wiped out, man, it also killed me.
Yeah.
Because we were kind of I was on an island, but. So interesting. What other strategy?
Well, as far as strategy goes, I played as the Egyptians, so I was kind of trying to do my regular turtling, which is super boring.
You didn't build the pyramids. Who built the pyramids?
I
built the pyramid. Pyramids are down to Aquitania. FYI.
I was trying to kind of spread out, build a bunch of settlements, get a couple of wonders, and then get a whole bunch of discs, and then turn those settlements into cities.
That get victory points then.
Yeah, and I was mostly trying to use my cards to not offend anyone. And then the end of the game happened and it was a disaster. but I was trying to keep myself to myself, maybe kill some barbarians here. But I was just trying to actually build a civilization because I was quite far away and removed from everyone else. That's what I was just trying to do.
So I think the positioning on the board allowed you to do that.
Yes.
I'm not sure that the Tim or the Romans, what were you?
I can't remember.
He was the
Something lame
Carthaginians.
that.
Mauritania.
Oh no,
Mauritanians.
he could have done that.
He
If
could have
he'd
done
stayed
that.
there and
Yeah,
gone to
spread
Spain,
out.
maybe.
And
but
green
that's
could have
not
gone
right.
after purple.
Yeah.
You were just one.
I just wanted to go after Josh. It was just,
So that's one thing that you have to force the conflict. Like, I could have just sat around here and halfway through the game I was like, all right, let's get fun. And I just started throwing stuff at Grant. I started throwing stuff at Josh. Maybe to get their mind off of me, maybe get their mind on what they're going to focus on. But you really have to initiate the conflict.
Yeah.
And if I would have known earlier that the barbarians were going to be that devastating, I probably would have put more on Alexander to begin with. And that would have forced him to either fight the barbarians where he's at or move to another situation, right? So I think you gotta initiate the conflict. You gotta go after it. Even though this whole game is about conflict, you still have to go find it.
Yeah.
You still have to move.
Yeah, and there's variants where you can have like a smaller board where I think the combat's going to be much more.
A little more involved.
Yes, and immediate, frankly. But we played with the full board just to kind of see what that was like. And I think it's still one of those gang up on the leader things. Because if someone's getting on the lead and they got a big empire, we got to charge over there, hit them with as many cards as possible, do some combats and things like that, just to kind of dogpile leaders on there. So having a lead, probably not a great strategy in this game.
Even when Josh didn't have the lead, but he was positioned with 13 cities, and then that was decimated. He was down to, how many do you have left? You have one city.
One city left.
One city, because everyone knew where to play their cards. The same thing happened to Alexander, actually.
Yes.
Did you have 8 or 10 cities?
Sure.
And then everybody knew where to throw their cards. I was part of that, but
Interesting.
you can't, your strategy can't stick. You just-
Yeah, you have to be somewhat nimble
Have
as
to
far
react.
as your strategy goes.
What about the cards? Did anybody feel any of the cards were too powerful, or we already talked? We like the investment
I
cards.
also
They're pretty
really
cool.
didn't like the one that stopped the card drawing phase and made us discard all of our hands.
yeah.
I really didn't
Yeah.
like that one for me or anyone
event.
else that it happened to. So that one was super annoying.
But yeah, it's the cards. So there's a bunch of the epoch cards, which as soon as you draw them,
Epic.
I call it that. As soon as you draw it, you play it immediately. And some of
He's
the
English. You can say it however you want.
some of those events are okay. I'll put some barbarians out, or some random like Atlantis rises, kind of random things like that. But some of them were
Volcano.
everyone discards their whole hands. Everyone draws 4 cards, and it's over. So you don't get to trigger all of your cold draw phase abilities that everyone else has, and things like that. And it kind of ends it right there and then. Or there was one that was a tsunami that just kind of killed all of the boats in the whole of the Mediterranean.
Well, and the one that basically hid my wonder.
And
That's
early
brutal.
game, that was killed.
That's brutal.
But so some of those are kind of powerful, and I've heard people doing house rules of taking out some of those cards, so there's fewer of them. My problem with those cards wasn't necessarily they were too powerful. It was that they came up quite a lot, and it just slows the pace of the game down.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, great, we've got to stop everything and do all this stuff.
Build back
And
up.
then someone else does one, you're like, oh my gosh, okay, we're never going to get to this draw phase.
Yeah.
That was that's changed the pace of the game a bit. And so if there were fewer of those in there, it would just keep it going up at a better clip. That's what was my thing with the cards.
One thing I enjoyed about the cards, I had like 10 cards at one time, and many of the cards, they work off of each other, so it's like you have to accomplish this card first, and then that next card you can put like disc where you control. And that was kind of cool, because it allowed me to get into Rome and move around in a different way. I liked that. I thought that was a very neat element. So looking for those combos in those cards, I think is very cool. They're very basic, but
I would also mention that we didn't utilize this much at all throughout the game, was to discard a card or a talent to save one of your troops.
yeah.
We didn't use that hardly at all until the very last
Yeah.
part of the game. And I think if we would have focused on that a little bit more, I think things would have changed a little bit more.
It's tough because cards
Are smart.
are at a premium
Yep.
in the early game, at least, especially.
Yeah.
Once you can get some economy going to get more cards with your talents, but then you're spending your talents to defend
Yeah,
losses
rather
in
than-
combat, then
But
you can't get as many
it's
cards.
still random what cards you get.
Right,
Yeah,
but
it's
that's-
true.
There's some cool choices to be made in that aspect of the game as well, and your kind of mini economy there too.
It was the Breath of God card. That's the one I didn't really like. And you compare it to something like Atlantis Rises, and it's like, come on, these
Yeah.
two are so different in terms of how they impact that
Yeah.
turn.
But the actual cards themselves were typically, it was like, either put out my discs or take someone else's discs over.
Yeah.
There was variations on that, most of which were pretty rude to other people. So again, and it's like you'd have a hand of cards, 6 out of those 8 cards would be screw someone else over.
Yeah.
So you gotta keep
6
that
out
in
of
mind.
8 is more like 7 out of 8.
I would say one concern that I have is the length of the game.
Oh, it's very long.
I think we all agreed we would never play a 4 epoch game of this.
Yeah.
Epic game. I don't mind playing a long game, but I feel like in a game this long that you're doing the same thing from
Yeah.
turn 1 to turn
It
87.
doesn't change or mold. Yeah.
It doesn't, and so I just don't think there's a lot of difference between the first hour and the 8th hour if you were to choose to play 8 hours.
Yeah, it's for just moving the pieces around and
Stop with
not being able to have a clear strategy in that way. Playing 4 epochs is a long time to do that. If I'm playing an 8-hour game, there's going to be defined goals, and it's going to be a lack of chaos where I can conduct that in the best way that I can.
Yeah.
I didn't feel any different in the 3rd hour than I did in the first 15 minutes of the game.
Any
Right.
different? What do you mean?
Like I didn't feel like I had more disc on the board, but I was still doing the same thing. I was either hurting somebody else
Yeah.
or helping myself.
You're not-
Hurting somebody else, helping myself.
There's no tech tree where you get more cool
Right.
abilities.
That
or
would have
better
been something
units
I
or
think that would have
anything.
been really
It's just
cool.
the
A
same deck of cards,
technology.
screw.
Yeah, but I think a technology thing would have been cool.
Maybe it would have to
It
be
would have to
simple.
be simple.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think too,
But-
what slowed us down also towards the end was the number of cards we had in hand.
Yeah.
for
Yes.
the card phase.
it was.
Where if you had 10 to 15 cards each person, and play one at a time, that took a long time.
And we had that many cards because we happen to have a lot of talents
Yes.
Yeah.
that we
Yes.
spent to buy extra cards.
Yeah.
Yes.
Usually you only get 3 or maybe 4 cards.
Right.
But we have, I think, Matt, you and I both spent 4 or 6.
Yeah, I spent 4 in the last one.
And it's to get more cards because we felt they were very
I
powerful.
got 10 cards in the last round.
Yeah.
10 new cards.
But yeah. So, anything else that people have like thoughts of the game? It was I wouldn't play a 4 epoch game. I just wouldn't do it.
Well, I just don't know. I don't know. 1 or 2, I think, is good enough. I think.
But
you get
I like
the-
that there's a choice that we
Yeah,
can
yeah,
make
yeah,
a
yeah.
4 epoch game or a game to just 20 victory points.
And I'm sure
I like
there are
that.
people
Change
that
the
love
size
it and
of
would
it.
play it that long. It just doesn't need to be that long. That's what I'd say. But after all that, I had fun playing it.
Yeah, I had a good time interacting with everyone,
Yeah.
seeing the little bit of chaos. I like a game like Matt where I can develop a strategy, follow that strategy. This game, I just don't know that you can do that.
And that's where they usually win. With strategy. Randomness, guess who wins?
Randomness. Yeah. But I think overall, I would play this again. I would want to play a 1 or 2 epoch game. I would want to play a different map setup
Yep.
to see how it's different.
Yep.
and maybe even throw in a solitaire.
Oh, is that
Yeah, so you can do like a 2-player game with an AI for the third. I didn't read into it, but maybe that's something we'll look at. But I think there's options. This game has options.
Yeah, that's the one thing I would say it does have going for it. It's easy to learn, but you can play it with almost any number of people. You can change up the game how it plays.
Yeah.
You can house roll as much of the cards as you want.
You can do anything you want, really.
And it's easy to do that because the game is not a complex game.
Yeah.
You take out one or two things, you're not going to break the game in any way, I would feel at least.
Yeah.
What I'll do is I'll show you the board, and then we'll just wrap up with a couple of quick final thoughts. So here's a quick look at the board. We're just going to show just a couple bits and pieces here. The way the game works is that you have initially a growth phase where you gain a number of discs equal to the number of settlements that you have. And what you'll see here, there's different numbers of discs in each area. So this guy has 2, this one just has 1, this one has 4, this one has 3. And a settlement is anywhere where there's 2 discs. If there's just 1 disc, it's just a presence. So this is like a naval unit, for example. If there's 1 disc on land, like there is over here, this is kind of just an army. This is an army. If there's 3 discs or more, this is a city. This is also a city because there's 3 or more. So in the growth phase, you get a number of discs equal to the number of settlements you have. So this one's just going to get 1. And then you'll also, so it goes kind of into your ready. And then you also get a number of discs equal to the number of adjacent civilizations. Now the black ones are barbarians, not a civilization, but we're adjacent to yellow, so we'll get another disc, and we're adjacent to blue, so we'll get another disc. And then you might have some special abilities that you can trigger to do that. You might have a wonder or 2 that do that. So something like, for example, the Great Lighthouse. If you were to control the Great Lighthouse, and the Great Lighthouse is this little cube with a nice sticker on it. If that was kind of in an area that you controlled, you could trigger that ability, and that ability allows you to get a couple more discs that you can place in a very specific area. So the lighthouse, for example, says you may remove a disc from this card, and it starts with 5 when you build it, and place it along with up to 1 additional disc from your supply into an area adjacent to an area you occupy. Helps you to grow and expand your empire. Then gain 1 talent. So what we'll do is we'll trigger that ability. It gives us 2 discs that we have to put in an area adjacent to where we are. Well, we're adjacent to this area here, so we're going to build a settlement there with those 2. And then I gain a talent. A white cube goes into my little treasury over here. So then I've got to place these out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a couple in the Gulf of Tarraco to try and combat these barbarians. And then I'm going to change this settlement into a city. Boop, growth phase. You all do that in turn order, nice and easy. Then you get to the card phase, and you'll have a hand of cards that you draw. You start the game with 5, and you basically just take turns going around the board playing cards. And the cards are frankly awful. Most of these are just really bad things. So this says select land area. Yeah, let's get that into focus for you. Select land area. Replace all discs there with an equal number of barbarian discs. Ignore stacking limits in the chosen area until the beginning of the reckoning phase. So you might be like, okay, well, I don't want this person to have a city here anymore or here, so I'm just going to play that card on you, and we're going to replace all of those. So let's say we'll do it right here. We're going to remove these 3 and replace them with these 3. Then it's the next person's turn, and the next person is going to play this card. It says, remove 1 disc from each of 4 different sea areas. And when it says a disc, it can be a barbarian, it can be an enemy player. So let's say the blue player plays that. What they're going to do is they're going to remove 1, 2, 3, and they'll remove a green one from off this end of the board as well. Real simple. Then it goes to the yellow player's turn, and the yellow player is going to play Local Famine. Remove 1 disc from any city. then the civilization to which that city belongs must choose to either lose another disc from that area or discard a card. So the yellow player chooses this city right here, they're going to remove one, and now I have to say either I'm going to lose another one from there or I'll discard a card. And let's just say I'll discard a card. But frankly, that's a huge an example of what it's like. You're just adding and removing discs based on the cards, either adding your own, taking away others, replacing them, adding barbarians. There's these white discs, which are you kind of mercenaries. You can get those through cards. So I might have 2 of my own troops here and a mercenary. If we do a combat, the mercenaries die first. So it's actually pretty good. Those get used as kind of body bags in that instance. You go around the table until everyone's passed, playing all these cards. And then you basically get into like what's called a competition phase. So here, for example, if you have one of each, these guys are just in competition. There's no combat that happens. They're just there trading one with another. They can sit there, no big deal. What you will find though, is if there was ever a situation like this, where there's more than one of either side, so let's say we've got 3 yellow and 2 red, we're going to have competition. And he's basically starting with the smaller stack, you remove one. So this smaller stack removes one, this bigger stack removes one, then this smaller stack's remove one. Competition's over, this is what stays and wins. That's how combat's resolved. There's no dice rolling, there's no anything like that. What there is that there is some card play and things like that. So what you might look at in your hand of cards is some of them are competition cards. And they very explicitly, so for example, have an obsidian quarry. You can tell it's a competition card because it has this little red C on it. And what happens is before combat's resolved, each player has the opportunity to kind of play cards. So I'm going to play this face down, and the opponent doesn't have any of those C cards, so they're not going to do it. And then you resolve this. So it says, play if the competition is in a land area. Remove 1 disc belonging to each opposing faction there. So if blue was here, one of each would go away. So the red player then removes one of the yellow ones, so now it's even odds, which is nice. So what's going to happen is, because these both have the same number, they both have 2 units in there, these get removed simultaneously. And now we're at 1 and 1, so just like here, the combat stops. We're just making peace and we're trading normally, kind of a thing. What you can do though, is we've got 1 and 1. Remember I got that talent from earlier. I can spend a talent to prevent my red one from being removed. So if this is simultaneous, I prevent mine and they remove one. Well, what happens now is I've got 2, they've got 1. The person with the smaller stack removes 1 first. So they remove theirs, and so see how the outcome is completely reversed from what was happening before, where it was 3 and 2, for example. And so that's the power of these combat cards, and that's how you can change momentum in a combat just by playing a card. Just like how we were playing cards in the card phase to just kind of mess up the whole board. As such, when you have hands of cards that are like anywhere from 5 to 8, which is fairly typical, there's so much flux in a combat, in how your civilization is. It can be challenging to kind of play those. Basically, after all the combats and competitions are done, you then score victory points based on how many cities you have and how many wonders you control. So if you've got lots of cities and wonders, you will be ganged up upon. It will happen. And then turn order is going to change. Whoever's got the most cities goes first. So then people who are lower, kind of in the pecking order, can kind of react and gang up on you, and it will happen. But that's really a lot of the simplicity of this game. It's just adding and moving discs, and then resolving some kind of competition and fighting. But it's all about trying to maintain some kind of stability, having some talents in reserve, because the talents you're going to use to buy cards or protect your guys in combat, and but that's it. The rules are really, really very simple. The play aids are pretty good. They got really good sequence of play on them, and you just play through that again and again through the different turns. There's 4 turns in an epoch. You can play up to 4 epochs if you want. But that's really it. That's the board, and what we'll do is we'll wrap up with a few final thoughts here. So that was the board, and just how some of the combat works and the cards. And all in all, it is a light, fair game. It's a little bit on the longer side, but I enjoyed playing it. I just don't know if I would choose this over other games with this theme.
Right.
Is what I would say.
Frankly, I prefer to play like a Mare Nostrum, which we played before and had a great time with.
Yeah, I like that one.
I think it's similar, has some of the same concepts. It's a little deeper, a little more complex. Ooh, it also has that sweet trading mechanic. But I think this is a very simplified version of a Civilization game that I think works pretty well. The rules are pretty easy. I think it works well together. I think everything seems to have purpose. It's just a lot of chaos. A lot.
Yeah, if you've got a big group of people and you've got a couple hours playing through an epoch and just kind of doing it, it's fun, it's light, you're not going to tear your hair out because you shouldn't be taking it that seriously. But it's just kind of like fun and it can handle a lot of players. So there's
Up to 6.
It's a sweet spot if you're at a convention or if you've got a whole bunch of people in your game group that can do that. But if you wanted something a bit more involved and strategic, there's a ton of kind of ancient Mediterranean games out there that you have as options as well. Anyone else, any final thoughts?
I think it's one too where you have to kind of trial and error, tweak it to see what the right size is for the number of people playing and the cards, and it's just one of those you have to retry over and over again to figure out the ideal setup for each scenario.
It's really hard to do a review of a game like this after only playing one time.
Yeah.
We should play this 3 or 4 times, but we're trying to give you our initial thoughts. You know, I'd love to get another group of guys together and play maybe a 6-player or even do just a 3-player just to see how it's different.
Yeah, if it
Would be
holds
fun.
up.
Overall, I would say this is an introductory game to a Civ type game.
Yes.
And I think it does its job fine. Just runs a little bit long.
Yeah, there isn't, I would say, outside of your very minor abilities, there isn't necessarily a lot of historicity in this one either. Because it's so chaotic.
Pyramids
You
are
just do
Aquitania.
whatever you want. It's just like got this theme on it. It's fun to play, it's light, it's a chaotic kind of mess at times. But you just kind of play, and then see what happens. But it's got I think, in my brain, I think this would do better at a higher player count. I don't know if I'd enjoy this with 3. I don't know if the system would hold up as well, because you would just be, all I'm doing is screwing one other person, basically, that in a situation like that. I think when it's lots, you can kind of spread out the hate a bit more.
Spread the hate.
And like, you can sow some seeds of chaos over here, and they're going to kind of fight over there, and I'm just doing my thing over here. You can get away with doing that kind of stuff a bit more. And so I think this is a larger player count game for me as well. But I guess it's fun. Check it out if you haven't. Only one person in the game group would need to get this. It's not a must-buy in any way, but it's fun to try out and have played once at least. So if you get an opportunity, I'd recommend at least giving it a go.
So I would just say epic.
Epic.
So thanks very much for tuning in and watching. Thanks guys for playing with us.
Thank you
It's been
guys.
Awesome.
It's fun.
Been theplayers8.com.